Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It's your boy D Black coming back with another Raw review. All right, Raw tonight. The show, I'm not going to say it was garbage. I mean, we got a lot of explaining to do. There were some matches that were thrown together that I already said that was going to happen on a couple of videos that were going to take place. But anyway, let's get into it and we'll talk about it as we get to it. All right. We have first Cody Rhodes coming out. You know, he's gonna come out and ask ask the audience what they want to talk about. And that's before he gets to start talking. Stephenie McMahon comes out. Okay, and then Stephenie starts telling Cody that the version of Randy Orton is diabolical, is mean, is nasty, and everything. And Cody isn't in the position, to beat that portion of Randy. And she tells Cody that, he's not diabolical like that, and that he needs to start getting into that realm and everything, because like, you know, um, Cody's father, Dusty Rhodes, because Dusty, he was able to get down, and she told him, told Cody that he's not his father and stuff, because, at the point of Dusty Rhodes' career, he got down with the best of them and stuff, never looked back. He always matched, fire with fire and everything. Dusty was the man, and he's still one of my top 5 wrestlers, man, of all time and stuff. And then she goes on, to tell Cody that, he needs to, get together in his head and he needs to start thinking, more or less on the side of realm of Randy Orton and what's going on with him. And then all of a sudden, Cody, you know, um, looks at Stephenie and starts telling Stephenie that, he knows, Randy very well and stuff, and that he can, you know, um, do, and he has what it takes, to beat Randy and stuff like that. And then he says that no, he's not like his father, Dusty Rhodes. And then he goes on, to say that, you know, the things that Randy used to do, and that Randy was the student. I mean, not the student, but Randy was the teacher. Cody was the like the student stuff. And he says it's not like that anymore. He said that at his time, he had to babysit, Randy Orton when he went to sleep, and talking about cleaning up the drool and all this other crap like that. And then he goes on saying that he is not like his father. And then he also tells Stephenie she's not like hers either. you know. And then it took just like a little pause. And Stephenie slaps the crap out of Cody Rhodes, you know. And then she goes on to say things like, as far as Randy is listening to those voices that, Randy can control all those voices and stuff like that, and that he's ready. And that if Cody doesn't, get ready and get on that level and stuff, that he's going to lose the match. And if he loses the match, then, at the upcoming WrestleManias and stuff that will be coming up and stuff, they won't be naming, they won't be mentioning Cody's name as the undisputed world champion and stuff. And then Cody looks at her and he tells her, that he has 2 words for her, and then he says thank you, and then that's the end of the segment. So now I'm trying to say, like, what made sense of this and stuff, because it didn't. And then they're on SmackDown, so why is this on Raw? So make that make sense. Leave it in the comment. Let me know, because I'm blown by it. Then we get a little segment with Danhausen, I Show Speed, and Adam Pearce and everything, and they're just talking, I Show Speed is just saying something about he's going through some troubles and asking Danhausen to, drop the, spell that, the curse that he put on him and stuff like that. And then in the background, you can see Kofi Kingston talking to Devon Evans and stuff, and then at that time, LA Knight comes out and says that he has said something, he's going to go out there and watch the match, with Jimmy and Jay against Austin Theory and Logan Paul. So that's the match that we have coming up. So for the World Tag Team titles and stuff. So the match was okay. It was good. They were going back and forth. It was expected to be what it is, even though we've seen this match for about 7 to 8 times now. And then it gets to the point to where Austin's Theory, well, not Austin Theory, but Logan Paul goes outside out of the ring and stuff. Even though this was, no disqualification match, and it was a, street fight kind of match and stuff. He goes and gets some brass knuckles. I guess this was his mom, as he appeared to say. Gave him the brass knuckles, and then all of a sudden, I show speed. Looks like he was trying to take the brass knuckles from Logan Paul, and then LA Knight gets involved and stuff. And then I Show Speed ends up with the brass knuckles. Logan Paul, LA Knight lays out Logan Paul. He goes to grab I Show Speed, or turn them around, and I Show Speed hits Logan Paul with the brass knuckles and everything. Not Logan Paul, but hits LA Knight with the brass knuckles, put LA Knight down. And then Logan Paul gets the brass knuckles back and stuff. And then he nails Jimmy and stuff. And then Jay is outside the ring, so he attacks Logan Paul, from the apron and everything. And then Austin Theory lays his arms around Jimmy, and it gets to 1, 2, 3. And we have new tag team champions. Austin Theory, Logan Paul division, they're tag team champions, which is crazy. And then I Show Speed, then it shows I Show Speed, getting up with Logan Paul and Austin Theory and walking out, together, as their champions and stuff like that. And they're, thanking them and stuff. Then we get Liv Morgan coming out in her interview. She's, talking about Stephenie Valkyrie, and, she's always going to come out that, she's the greatest Royal Rumble winner of all time and stuff like that. And then she starts talking about Stephanie Valkyrie, and she calls her, she said that she's a done bee and stuff like that, and that, WrestleMania, she's going to, beat her and stuff like that. And as she's talking, then we get Stephanie Valkyrie. Well, she said something about Stephanie Valkyrie's mom and stuff, as Liv was talking about, her mom. And then she said something about Stephanie Valkyrie's mom, but it was in Spanish, so I don't understand what she said. But whatever she said, it had to be something bad that she shouldn't have said at all, because Stephanie Valkyrie came out and they went to brawling. And then from that point on them brawling, then all of a sudden, Roxanne Perez shows up, because Roxanne Perez was out injured, for a few months and stuff, well, a couple of months and stuff. So now she's back, and they started beating up, Stephanie Valkyrie and stuff. And then all of a sudden, Liv hit Stephanie with the with her move. I can't even think of the move that the Oblivious and stuff, and hits Stephanie Valkyrie with that and stuff. And as you know, this is raw and uncut, so the mistakes will come. But anyway, that leaves that segment on for there. Then we got Paul Heyman, television, to take out, telling Paul Heyman and Austin Theory to take out I Show Speed, give him something to eat and everything, and take care of him and stuff, and, watch his back and everything, because, the Usos are going to be looking for him to kill him and stuff like that, because of the involvement that he had in the ring. And I'm sure LA Knight is probably looking for him too. And hopefully this isn't going to be a part where, the Usos and LA Knight go against I Show Speed and, the Vision. I'm hoping that that's not what they're looking to do as far as getting him a spot as far as WrestleMania is concerned, because it's just okay. We'll leave it right there. And then we have backstage, Adam Pearce asking Paul Heyman, has he gotten the email? Has he seen an email? And Paul Heyman says, no, You know how Paul Heyman is. He gets smart with him and stuff like that. Talking about his email, sending him out, for a date or something like that and everything. But he says no. And then we get the match with Bayley and Lyra going against Lash Legend and Nia Jax and stuff. And this match was a horrible match. I mean, there was so many missed spots and everything and stuff. I mean, it's just crazy. The women's division is looking real sloppy. It's looking real sloppy, boy. They need some help real bad, real bad. And I like the women's division, but it's, oh man, it's just not looking good right now. You know, it's just not looking good right now. They need help. But anyway, as expected, the Bella twins come out and stuff, and then here comes Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss coming out behind them. Then they all get in the ring and they start brawling, and everything. The matches end up in a DQ match. And like I said on the last two videos, I knew, and I'm probably sure you did also, know that this was going to be a fatal four-way match at WrestleMania to fill in the spots, to give people their WrestleMania moments and stuff. Then we got Danhausen going out promoting, Saturday night, main event back in New York, in the Garden on July 18th. And then we got Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman comes out and he starts, talking about, the situation with, Obafemi and Brock Lesnar. And he was saying that Obafemi, they're going to clean up the pee and the blood from Obafemi after Brock Lesnar gets beat up with, done with him, because most men, when they have to face, Brock Lesnar again, that's how scared they get. They pee all over themselves. Then Brock Lesnar leaves them bloody and stuff like that. And then Brock pulls the mic from Paul Heyman's hands, and then he calls out Obafemi. And then Obafemi comes out, doesn't actually get into the ring. Adam Pearce and the guards, security come out and stuff, and Obafemi's just standing there, and then he just starts nailing the security. He picks one of the security guys up and everything, and he threw that guy. He must have threw him at least 5 feet and stuff. I mean, he slung the guy and stuff. And then he goes out to the ring, doesn't actually get in the ring. He just walks around the ring and stuff, And, Brock is looking at him as he's, pacing around the ring, and then he gets up on the ring apron and stuff, and then once he's, gets in, then they stare down each other and stuff. And then Triple H, he jumps in the ring. And then Triple H gets in between the two of them and stuff. People, the audience was waiting for them to start brawling again and stuff like that. And Triple H wouldn't let that happen and stuff. Then Brock leaves the ring, and that was the end of that segment. So they should have fought. You got to bring the passion. You got to bring it to it. So we'll see how it goes in the next few weeks. I mean, we're 19 days away from WrestleMania, and it's not looking good. But anyway, we get the match with Penta, versus Kofi Kingston. The match was okay. It went back and forth. Grayson Waller tried to get involved. Kofi Kingston told him he didn't want him to get involved and anything, like that in the match and stuff. And then, Penta hits the Mexican Destroyer on Kofi Kingston and wins the match. And then after the match, Cat Kelly gets in the ring, asks Penta what's his plans as far as WrestleMania is concerned. And then I guess he has an open challenge to anybody, to come in to challenge him in a ladder match and stuff. So there'll be a ladder match, with four of the guys going in. I'm not exactly sure who the four guys are. It could be, from what I understand, maybe Rusev, Javon Evans, JD McDonough, and somebody else. I'm not sure. But anyway, wait and see that. I'm sure they'll announce that here shortly and upcoming. And then we got Adam Pearce again, asking Brock Lesnar, not Brock Lesnar, but asking Paul Heyman, where Brock Lesnar at, and then Paul Heyman tells him that Brock Lesnar has left the building and stuff like that. Adam Pearce says good. And then he asks Paul, Heyman, has he received, an email and stuff. And he says no, but he has something more important to say, and he wants to go out and say it out in the ring. So he goes out to the ring and everything. Then he gives a shout out to the Vision for winning the tag team titles and stuff. And he goes on and just talks, about stuff that's going on as far as with Brock Lesnar and everything like that and stuff. And then Adam Pearce asked him again, about um, the email and stuff, while Paul Heyman is talking about Seth Rollins and what had happened to him and stuff and everything. And then Adam tells, Paul Heyman, if he'd have checked his emails, he would have saw in the email that the charges that were on Seth Rollins, the charges were dropped, and that Seth Rollins was cleared from the doctors, to wrestle. And the face on Paul Heyman's face and everything just told the story. And then Seth Rollins comes up from the back. He has a chair and he nails Paul Heyman with the chair and stuff. And then he puts the chair down. He's getting ready to stomp Paul Heyman on the chair and stuff. And Gunther comes out and he grabs Seth and puts him in the chokehold and puts Seth Rollins to sleep. And as he's done that, he's, pointing to the WrestleMania sign. So there's that other match just thrown together, no storyline behind it or anything and stuff, with Seth Rollins against Gunther and stuff. And I'm hoping that Seth Rollins wins that match because it would make zero sense for Gunther to beat Seth Rollins and stuff. Only reason because Seth Rollins is not retiring right now anytime soon. And I believe Seth should win this match. So make it make sense, Triple H. Then we get a match with Io Sky and Raquel Rodriguez. The match was, it was pretty decent. It was all right. There was a few missed spots and stuff like that. I think they got tired because they were doing a lot of things in this match, and Io, she's one of the well workers, and Raquel is starting to, bring up her stock in the ring too and everything. But we get the interference of, Oscar and Kyrie saying, come down, and Oscar's, how she's been doing Kyrie, treating her like crap and everything. Io Sky goes out and she tries to, get Kyrie, to, I guess, leave Oscar and everything. But then as she gets in the ring, she gets caught, you know, um, actually, Kyrie gets on the ring and Raquel kicks, Kyrie off the ring, and then she ends up nailing Io Sky with a Tejana bomb and wins the match. Then we get a little thing about John Cena is going to be hosting WrestleMania, which is a good thing. Um, I know they're trying to get tickets sold and stuff. I guess, saying John Cena is going to be the host, you know, it, I guess that's fine. But anyway, then we get to the segment with Roman Reigns and CM Punk. And then Roman Reigns comes out here, and he tells, New York City, to acknowledge him, as he always does. And then all of a sudden you hear CM Punk music starts and he is coming to the ring on some business. They go, hit the ring, they brawl, and stuff. I mean, they just, brawl, just like they did last week, brawled. CM Punk hits Roman Reigns with the GTS, and then he power slams Roman Reigns to the announcer's table, just like last week when Roman Reigns, nailed CM Punk and picked him up and put him through the announcer table and just left him laying and stuff. And so that's how this went in the same way, but just opposite people and stuff. And that's how the show ends with that, and stuff. So, but this was Raw. This was a review. I'm going to give it a rating out of 1 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 3 and stuff, but that's about it. They need to get better. Triple H needs to get better. I don't know how this WrestleMania is going to be. But anyway, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, leave a comment. Please let me know how you feel about this and stuff. So, thank you, thank you for watching. God bless, deuces, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.